Good morning, good day, and good evening. Welcome to episode 151 of Tech of a Tea. And today, I've got a guest here that people have been asking me to look at one of his projects for quite a while, and I thought, hey, let's just do something better and talk to the guy involved himself. Welcome to the show, Mirko Brombin. Try that again. Mirko, can you just say, I've only ever seen your name written down. How do you actually pronounce your first name?
Brombin.
Your first name, not your
Mirko. Mirko.
Mirko. Okay, cool. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
So just pre-warning, there might be a bit of a language barrier as we're going through the episode. We'll make it work as we go, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. Basically, I've got some things lined out, so you know, it could go well. It could go really badly. It could go really well. We'll see. We'll see exactly what happens. So I guess we'll start off with, I guess, a brief introduction of who you are and what do you do.
I am a UX UI designer at Fabricators, my company, and I work as a designer, and I make products for the definition in our company is that we make software for the human for humans. We make for human quality.
Right. And the main things that people may have heard of you for are the work that you've done on bottles and now the work you're doing on VanillaOS.
Yeah, I'm the main developer of the bottles and VanillaOS. And that's it. I think people already know what are the projects. So,
I think they know about the projects, but they may not have heard anything from you. Could you sort of like just, it seems like you're just getting into the work and getting things done. You don't really, I guess, put yourself out in the spotlight as much as some people might do.
I'm an open source contributor. I started using Ubuntu like 12.04 a lot of years ago.
Yeah, that's 10. Yeah, that'd be 10 years ago now. Wow.
Yeah, I remember my last Windows edition was XP.
Okay, that was a while ago.
Which is a lot time ago. And my first varied distribution, which was also the one which made me start contributing to the Linux world, is Elementary OS. I started bottles, was a pure experiment. My first application made with GK and Granite, the toolkit, the framework used in Elementary OS. And I was just thinking, I want to make my first application. What can I do? And I was using Play on Linux, Lutris, and others. And I love Lutris a lot. I love Lutris. But I found it a lot confusing because there are, so many clicks around. You need to take this and do this, but click this and there's so much to do. And I'm a UX designer, so my first idea was just make this simple. And this was my idea.
I can definitely understand that with Lutris. Like when, say I want to install a game, for example, you'll usually grab some script from the Lutris website, and then it just prints out this giant wall of text as it's going through the script. You're not really sure what it's doing and what you can really change with it.
Yeah,
it's just doing something.
You just click on Cyberpunk and you see this wall text,
Mhm.
and the main user will say, "Oh, okay, nice. What should I do with this?"
Exactly.
And as and so I made bottles, and I didn't think it would go so well. Actually, so well, so a lot well. It's
It definitely got a lot of attention, that's for sure.
yes, in just 1 minute. I mean, the first version was very very unstable, obviously,
When was
and very
Bottles
unstable.
first made?
Uh, ta- 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 ta. I don't remember.
It I know I've heard about it for a while. It's got to be at least a couple of years old at this point.
2017,
Okay.
a lot of time ago.
So the first version was very unstable.
I'll send you a picture of the first version, and
Okay.
it was very, very, very ugly. I think I made a post in your blog.
Bottles nowadays definitely looks very polished. It's very clear that you're not just okay, something that you'll see with a lot of open source projects is they have a very distinctive a programmer made this and not a UI designer made it. It's clear that they're designed in a way that makes sense to the programmer but doesn't make sense to, a regular user. Bottles, it's very clear that you have experience developing UIs and understand someone would actually what someone would actually need for there to be a good experience.
Uh, I have to say that there are a lot of people working there.
Mhm.
I'm not just the main user UX developer, UX designer. There are a lot of developers, and
Mhm.
the UI. Despite I'm a UX designer, UI designer.
Mhm. Mhm.
The design of bottles is not made by me.
Okay.
There are January, Noel, Alvar, and other designer who made it possible. I developed it. I'm not a developer.
Mhm.
Not a developer. I don't know how I turn me to put code in my project, but I started made a
Mhm.
developer. Quindi, so there are a lot of people.
Mhm.
Also, David Skeleton, who you already interviewed.
Yes. Yeah, he's a very interesting person. Has a very interesting blog to read. Um, you say this first version of Bottles wasn't very polished, but even so, it still seems like the framework for what Bottles has become today is still present in this early version.
Yes, it was GTK,
Mhm.
and it is GTK today. Just it started as GTK 3
Mhm.
with Granite, so I don't know if you check the picture I sent you.
Yes, I'm looking at that right now.
Yes, and the first on the left
Mhm.
is the 0.7,
Ah, okay.
and the 0.8 at the right, and the center is just the V2.
Okay, that makes sense.
There are a lot of versions and UI change, which just leave it white.
Okay, looking at that version on the left, I can definitely see how it has improved a lot since then. In that first version, it seems like it's a very simple GTK interface. Now it's definitely a lot more polished now.
Yeah, it's not complete. We are trying to follow the GNOME guidelines, but there are a lot of rules to follow, so we need some time to complete the work. We are almost here.
Almost. What is the
Almost.
biggest thing that's missing right now?
Some quality of life improvement, probably.
Mhm.
There are some bugs, so yeah, there will be bugs forever, probably.
Yes. Well,
Because, like any software in the world, probably. Just some widgets not connected properly, like there is a search bar in the library which actually does nothing. I don't know why it was it is also unstable, so I don't know why. It's probably my fault, so I don't know. But it looked good, so
and
okay.
a lot of people seem to like what Bottles is doing, so maybe we can forget about a search bar that doesn't work just yet and worry about the important
Yes.
thing. Fixing that, hiding that search bar until it works doesn't seem like a difficult thing to fix. So, one of the things I did want to ask you about was why. Actually, we'll go back a little bit. You mentioned that when you last used Windows, you were using Windows XP. What made you want to stop using Windows and start using Linux instead?
It was a lot of time ago, so I don't remember properly. But I remember that I bought that magazine, which has Linux as the title. And I was like, what is Linux? And I started reading the topics inside, reading a lot of things. And I needed to try this operating system. So I started looking for a CD because it was a lot of time ago. So now download with a 56K modem. And start with a CD, try installing with a very lot of problems. Because Linux was a very mess a long time ago.
Yeah.
And today there are a lot of people which start blaming Linux because, oh, this doesn't work. Oh, this is not fantastic. Oh, this is not a ways. Yeah, trust me, it is a ways. Trust me.
Well, I have a lot of issues with the way that Linux works now, so I can only expect that as it was a much younger project then, those issues were a lot greater and a lot more prevalent. But you've worked through it clearly, and you've kept using Linux, and now you're working on Bottles. Actually, you started working on Bottles, but how did you initially get interested in wanting to make any sort of project, not Bottles itself, but how did you get started doing any development or any UI stuff as well?
I remember that my approach was looking at other source code. I was not very familiar with GitHub. GitHub, I don't know how it's pronounced.
Yes, GitHub.
Yes. And I was looking at the code. I had a little bit of skill for Python. So I started looking at Python code and just start from there. So I started copying this. Okay, I can put this here, and I can try change this. Well, this works. Okay, I can start reading the documentation. Because if you are a Python developer, which I am not, you have a lot of experience with documentation references. So you just take the reference, look at the function, this does this, and so just copy this and use, and everything started from there. So
So it's been a slow learning process since then, to the point where you can really make your own project.
Yes. It take me like 3 years to start making something which actually works. Something like that.
Before you made, I presume, so Bottles is the first thing where it's a a real project that other people want to be using. But before you were doing that, how did you go about learning different things with programming? Did you just do little project, like little small projects on the side, or did you work on other projects for things you might want to be using? How did you go about doing that?
I made another application before
Mhm.
that. I was already working as a developer because I'm not a developer, but I work as a developer. I don't know. Using Django, which is a
Okay.
famous Python framework.
Yep.
So I already had a bit of understanding of what I'm doing.
Mhm.
After, for actually bottles, I made another application which is called Football. Should
Mhm.
be in the elementary app center if not wrong. And it just show football score.
Oh, okay.
So it was my real first application.
Mhm. That would teach you basic things like interacting with an API and basic GUI stuff as well. But it's not this big application like Bottles is now.
Yes,
Hmm.
that's football.
Hmm. One thing with one thing about Bottles is Bottles makes it very clear that Flatpak is the recommended way to install it. And I've talked to Skeleton about uh, distributions shipping bottles in the native package manager and how that can cause different issues depending on how their dependencies are set up. One thing I did want to ask is why Flatpak specifically and not Snap, for example?
Because Flatpak is actually in Flatpak works.
Hmm.
Snap has a lot of problem.
Okay.
I think that Snap is probably the best for developers because has
Mhm.
a lot of things, a better documentation, multipass, a lot of things. I love Snap. I love developing snaps, but they are slow,
Mhm.
a lot slow. There are many issues. At the time, there was no portals for something we need, some hatches, etc.
Mhm.
Flatpak just is probably the best solution for software, not just bottles, just software,
Mhm.
because it is at in the developer hands, so we can make our own Flatpak, test it in many architectures, test some dependencies at a specific version.
Mhm.
We have a lot of less effort than just experimenting with Ubuntu, Fedora, and other repositories specific for that distribution.
Mhm. Okay. I think that explains it pretty well. Um so why actually well also along with that why is it that a native package manager would not be recommended to install something like Bottles? Because I know it can cause issues, but what sort of problems have you experienced with people reporting issues that don't exist in the Flatpak but exist with the packages that they are saying they exist with, if that makes sense? Um, what problems does using a Flatpak solve as opposed to using a regular package in the case of Bottles?
The main difference is that we actually only tested the Flatpak one,
Mm-hmm.
which used that dependency at that version.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that libyaml that works very well with that version because we tested it with that version.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of issues because maintainers packages which does not properly repack bottles.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so since bottles was a project that had 2 releases per month, like the 13 and the 28
Mhm.
at each month. And it was a big problem because we had the 35 release and a lot of users started reporting problems with the 21.
Mhm.
And it was very problematic to fix because we don't test out.
Yep. Well, you can't really test every single distro package. Like, if Ubuntu is going to package it in one way, they're going to have certain dependencies and dependency versions on their system. Then, if you look at a distro like Arch Linux, for example, the versions available on that are going to be completely different. And I can understand why that would be a mess to actually test and keep things in line.
Flatpak is just universal.
Mm-hmm.
We built it, test it, and it just works everywhere. Just you need Flatpak setup.
I did notice that Bottles has a section in there for app image as well, but that's not currently available. Is there a plan to bring that back, or is that now deprecated and gone and just gone altogether?
We started distributing bottles as app image only at the start with Pichu, but there are a lot of problems with Wayland and other libraries and dependencies.
Okay.
We started working with Pro Bono, which is the founder of
Yep.
App Image Creator, but there are still many issues, so this is not ready. We are still working on it. I think it is ready sometime.
Okay. Okay, so it is possibly going to be there in the future, just not right now.
I hope.
Hopefully. So you did mention wanting to conform to the Gnome standards earlier. Why is the Gnome standards important for what you're trying to do with bottles?
Because of consistency.
Mm-hmm.
We need to, when users use Gnome, and every application looks the same with the same user experience, the same colors, theme. And so don't teams up, please. And this, so if bottles use the same user experience, the same workflow, same color, same theme, same everything, it's just simple to use for the user which does not know how to do things.
Mm-hmm. I have heard from Skeleton there have been issues with people using a theme with an application like Bottles, and that causing UI issues that were unexpected, like certain UI elements get misplaced, and these get reported as issues to the application developer when it's not really a problem with the application. It's only tested around this one GNOME theme, and this isn't the thing that you're trying to do. You're trying to make the application along this one set of guidelines, and anything else outside of that is going to be unsupported.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
just because when you theme an application, you are just hacking that application. I mean, we have our application with that design. We are following Adwaita, but this is the design we chose for our application. So when you start tweaking using that theme, but with Tesico icons, you are literally hacking the application. So like any other product, because Botus is a product, actually, you will not get support because you are breaking the application, actually.
So why does Bottles use? Because obviously you could have made bottles with something like Qt instead. Why did you go with GTK? Is that just because that's what you had any interest in at the time, or is there some other reason why GTK is what you've gone with?
I started using GTK, so I made some tests with Qt,
Mm-hmm.
but I found it very complex,
Mm-hmm.
problematic, and less, more versatile, flexible. You can do a lot of things with Qt which you cannot do with GTK,
Mm-hmm.
but it is missing the guidelines. So you are in the far west when you try to make an application with Qt. And I need to have some guidelines to make things because it's very complex to make a new interface without having some guidelines for your desktop
Oh,
because it's not well integrated.
you mean UI guidelines? KDE
Yeah.
doesn't provide the same. Do they have? I actually don't know. Does KDE have any sort of guidelines at all for UI design, or are you just entirely on your own?
I think they have Kirigami,
Mm-hmm.
which is a toolkit like libadwaita is for Qt, for GTK. But I think every user can do whatever they want
Mm-hmm.
because I personally, I don't find the coherence in the KDE applications. I can see that application that is made in this way, but another application that do that thing in another way, and it's the far west probably.
I think that definitely makes sense. When I see an application built in GTK, it's very clearly a GTK application, even if it's not perfectly in line with what Gnome is doing. It's still very clear that this is a GTK application. I've seen a lot of Qt apps where I had no idea until I'd actually checked that that's what it was using. So I can definitely understand that. I can definitely understand that UI coherence argument.
Yeah, because some have a menu bar, others as a sidebar,
Yeah,
others
yeah.
use something like the CSD as GNOME. It's a mess.
I think you can maybe make the argument that having that freedom does allow developers to express themselves in their own way for what their specific application is trying to do. But if the goal is trying to build an environment like GNOME is trying to build, having a clear set of guidelines, like this is something that Apple does really well. They have a clear set of guidelines on what is a interface that fits in with what we're trying to do. And for building a desktop like that, I totally get why that makes sense. And if you're building something with GTK, why it then makes sense to follow along with that so you can fit into that theming style.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pro for the freedom to develop your things in your way,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to think about the user, which is actually who will use that application.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that some users, some developers will say, I know, but I have my vision, so I want to do things in my way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but that user must learn about your user experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have just my desktop with one user experience. I have my desktop, which is GNOME, KDE, or any other desktop, and the Discord, which is this user experience, and Lutris, which is another user experience. But I have Chrome, which is another user experience, and please. Help me in this ocean.
Every developer is trying to design their own twist on the user experience, but it's not giving you a consistent experience across all of them. I think that's what you're trying to say.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that goes back to what I was saying earlier about it's very clear that you have a UI designer perspective on this as opposed to being a programmer first. As I was saying earlier, there's a lot of projects out there where they're very clearly designed by a programmer. They haven't really thought about the user, thought about what goes into making a consistent UI. What they've thought about is how do we fit the features into this program, and let's just lay out the UI in a way that makes it work, but not actually laid out in a way that makes it easy and logical to use.
Yeah, you understand if an application was entirely created by a developer, if it has 1,000 of functions. Because the first error you made in UX design is making a function for every single action, like KDA, probably. I don't blame KDA. I love KDA. I'm friends with Niccolo Veggero, but I love KDA. But there is a lot of problem with the UX, and just make 1,000 of function to make everything. Is just looks nice. I have this function to make everything I want, but I don't know where they are because this list is very big.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the good things. Even though that might not be good for a easy user experience, this is one of the good things about the FOSS space. You can have something like Gnome, which is trying to be this coherent, well laid out design guidelines, trying to go for a simple user experience in the same space as something like KDE, where you have a lot of user functions being exposed to the user in giant lists, which may not be the easiest way to go about it, but some users are going to say that that is the experience they want to have. And at the same time, then you can have something like, a window manager like I'm using, and there's no coherence at all. I just pick and choose applications as I feel like it's going to achieve my goals. This is one of the great things about Linux. You can have all of these things at the same time. There's no one stopping you doing that.
I think that it's good to have two different desktop like GNOME, like KDE, because the first user is the one who need to use the computer as it is. I mean, I can add an extension to have a system tray. I use a system tray in GNOME because I need a system tray. But I think that it's good to have something like KDA, XFCE, Mate, and other, which I don't know if they are still alive, to be honest. Probably. Because I think that KDA is made for hacker. That people we need to make the taskbar look at certain thing, to have the desktop with icons, without icons, the dockbar, sidebar, etc. So I think it is good. This is also the best thing of Linux to have the personalization, the customization. So it's good.
It's good.
It's good.
I think that's the best way to sum it up. It's just good. Well, let's talk a little bit about VanillaOS, because that's the other thing that is getting, especially right now, a lot of attention.
A lot of attention. and a lot of pressure.
It got a lot of attention pre-release, but now that it's had the release recently, a lot of people are talking about it. And well, for anyone who hasn't heard about it, let people know what VanillaOS actually is.
What is VanillaOS? It is a phone? It is a television? No, it is a system operator. Operating system. The funny thing with VanillaOS that how it is the project started, because I was typing with one of my best friend, and we was talking about how many distro we tried in our experience, and we just started writing a list of problem, like Fedora is awesome, but why I need to install NVIDIA driver at the second time? Just I installed it, I want NVIDIA driver because I can't even click an icon using Nouveau. There are a lot of stuttering, glitch, and other things like that. So,
the Nouveau developers do a lot of good work, but I've not heard a lot of good things about the quality of the drivers. I'm sure they're all great people, but that's a really big task to take on.
Yeah, Fedora is always. I love Fedora. I used Silverbrew for like 1 year.
Okay.
And it's an awesome distribution, probably the best before vanilla. Yeah. And so we started writing that list, and there was Fedora with that problem. Ubuntu is the best because it can pre-configure it for Optimus laptop, which I use. Arch Linux, no, simply not, because it is broken. I don't know if people can use it. It is broken.
I don't know.
I can't even upgrade my system.
Why would anyone use Arch Linux?
By the way, I don't use Arch, man. And so
I'm gonna stay quiet. I've not been using Arch for the past 3 years.
They can shoot down your video because of this. So we started discussing with can we make our own distribution? I think it is almost simple because it's just a bunch of packages and everything is there. So why not? So we start cleaning up Gnome in Ubuntu because it's very, very, very blotted. A lot. It was fine because I made that repository just for me, and some people found it and started writing, reaching me to ask me, so can you distribute it? Can we have an Ubuntu with stock Gnome? So I made a Discord server for the project, and everything started from there.
How long ago was that?
3,000 of people.
When did you start that Discord server?
September.
Oh, that was really recent. I thought maybe you've been working on stuff a bit longer than that. No, that's very recent.
Just September. And the first version is completely different from the version we have now. We have dropped probably 99% of the code and everything. So the real project started at November.
Okay. So it's, what are we in? January now. So it's been going really for 2.5-ish months, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So Vanilla Gnome. Why Vanilla Gnome? What's wrong with what Ubuntu is doing with Gnome?
I am in the Gnome Foundation as a member. Because I love Gnome, I love everything of Gnome. the user experience of Gnome starting since Gnome 30 is a WASM. Gnome 3 was a mess, probably. A very problematic desktop environment. And so I was using Ubuntu because it works for Optimus laptop, NVIDIA. It's just a WASM because everything just works as expected.
Yep.
Despite the snaps and the bloated GNOME experience. So we started cleaning it up to make it pure, to provide the pure GNOME experience to the user, which is actually me, because I need GNOME in a pure way.
So everything was perfect about Ubuntu, but you just didn't like the customizations that Ubuntu was making. You wanted to just have that pure GNOME experience, which is certainly I've heard a lot of people complain that pure GNOME, there's something wrong with pure GNOME and you need to add extra things onto it. But from what you're saying, you prefer that pure experience.
Yes. I love the entire workflow of GNOME, like starting from the overview to just the missing minimize icon, because I started using GNOME as it is. I just installed the system tree icons. And at the beginning, I had problems because where is the minimize icon? I had to minimize icon, but I have nothing in my desktop. So why should I minimize my windows? Should I hide something? Probably not. So that icon is just I don't need it.
You were just used to it because you came from Windows XP, where minimize
exactly.
Yes, it's always been there.
A lot of people come from Windows or macOS, the primary system operating systems, and they look exactly for the same experience. So Windows had the minimize, maximize, close buttons, and they want the same buttons. But we are not Windows. Windows probably should learn from us. I don't know.
It makes sense on Windows because it's common to have desktop icons, whereas that trend is sort of faded out on Linux. There are ways to do it. It's just no one really cares enough to make them good. We just don't care about desktop icons. So unless you really want to see your wallpaper, there's not really much of a reason to minimize it. If you really want to see your wallpaper, you can go to an empty desktop and get the same experience.
Yeah, or you can use the shortcuts. I mean, I think there is a shortcut to minimize the window.
Okay.
There is one to maximize, so if there is the same to minimize.
Okay, I have a bit of experience using GNOME. My main experience using it is there are certain people in my audience who get very angry when they see GNOME. So I make a habit of every time I do anything on my channel with a virtual machine, I have to have GNOME installed.
Oh no, he's talking about GNOME. Let's put down the vote on this video. Thumbs down. No, man.
I also do the same with systemd, just because there is a small but very angry, loud set of people that their entire existence on Linux is based around not liking systemd.
I'll blow up your video up. I'll blow your video up just saying that I love systemd. I really love it because you can make a lot of things with it, with timer, mount point, units. It's just a WASO. A lot of things in VanillaOS is just made with systemd, so it's a WASO. Right.
So I presume that you didn't expect the attention that VanillaOS has had over this very short period of time. What has it been like going from having this distro that you basically just made for yourself to it now being this thing where I don't know if I have the article, but I remember someone writing this blog post. It was something like VanillaOS is the future of Linux distros or something like that. What is what has that experience been like having this suddenly popular distro?
I'm still mm, trying to figure out which is my mood, because Luca Di Maio, which is the DistroBox developer, is also my friend, and it's also involved in the VanillaOS development. And he started writing me, "Oh, the register made a good article talking about VanillaOS," and they was, "Oh, nice." And just some days ago, "Oh, ZDNet do the same," and this one made a lot of video which is saying VanillaOS is the future, is this, and I was, "Oh, it's fine, nice, okay, it's a reason, but it's just my my project. I mean, I don't know. Thanks." It's a ways. I mean, but I'm not ready for this probably, because the register is a big name.
Yeah, absolutely.
ZDNet is another big name. I remember that I was reading it when I was a child, and I just turned it into a 2019. So thanks.
Well, I don't think the attention is going to stop anytime soon. Now that a lot of applications are starting to be available as a Flatpak, there is this growing interest in the idea of an immutable Linux distro, which I hadn't heard this term prior to maybe a year ago, but now I know a lot of people who use Fedora Silverblue, and a lot of people now are really interested in seeing sort of that same style, but with an Ubuntu base instead. And I'm curious to see where this goes. For anyone who may not be aware, can you give a brief explanation on what an immutable distro actually is?
An immutable distribution is it was introduced, if I'm not wrong, by macOS or Chrome OS, because Chrome OS and Mac, or also Android, they are all immutable system operating system. The primary thing is that the system is almost or entirely locked down, so you can't just install things, change something in the root because you want, I don't know, one pony in your root, something like that. You can just install software in your home space, in your home directory, or in the host system, in the root system, using Flatpak, other universal packages which does not install libraries and other files in your root system. And VanillaOS is just something like that, but not really, because VanillaOS is immutable, but not entirely. You can make change to your etc folder, like some configurations and something like that. You can still install Flatpaks to the host, to the root system, which please don't do it. Just don't do it, because the root partition of VanillaOS is very small, and we had some reports of people installing everything in the root system and started blaming out the project because why I have left of space? Because we say things and you don't read things, so please listen to me next time. And this is the main, the main difference of VanillaOS. So the real folder, which is really immutable, is the USR one, which is the one who host who has the packages, the software. And normally in distributions like MicroOS, Silverblue, and Vanilla, you have to install things in your root like drivers, custom kernels, and something like that, using a transactional system. So the transactional system is just the atomic way to install something. And the anatomical procedure is that you start to make the installation. If something goes wrong, you can just, the entire transaction is just dropped and your system is never touched. So you have no difference, you have no missing configurations and something like that. And this is what the Silverblue, MicroOS, and VanillaOS does to make the change to the system, because you actually need to install something like NVIDIA drivers and custom kernel. This is the way to do.
I know this is the term that we are using now, but I don't really like the term immutable distro. It gives this impression that it's something it's really not. It makes sense that if you think about what the term means, it makes sense because we're saying that the core of the distro is immutable, but I've seen some people confused by the fact that, oh, but this part is writable and that part is writable. Like, just your home directory, for example, which obviously needs to be writable for a distro to be usable. If we could go back in time, I wish we could have picked something a bit better than a mutable distro, but I guess at this point we're stuck with it, and it's the term that we're going to be using going forward.
I think the same. I mean, the term immutable is probably complex because the user can think that I cannot do whatever I want with a distribution. But this is not true. You can do whatever you want with any distribution, always. There is also a trick in VanillaOS to disable the immutability. It is not documented because you should not do it, of course. But you can do everything you want with any distribution. Just when you are in the mentality to do that thing, is because you know what you need to do, what's your need. So if you are in the step to disable the immutability, is because you know what are you doing. I mean,
or you know
what are you
enough to be
doing?
dangerous, but you don't know enough where you should be doing it. There's definitely
Something
going to
like
be
that.
those people.
We have a lot of reports of people using the transactional shell, so the one to install the packages in the system. A lot of problems because they try to install everything in the root partition. And VanillaOS has two root partition, both of 20 gigabyte. They are used because when you make a change, when you boot the system at the first time, you boot into the root A partition, because this is a AB root partitioning. And when you make change, you may change in a overlay the current root partition, which is probably A the first time. And if the transaction such works, the changes are applied to the second partition, which is probably B at the first time. So when you boot again your system, you boot to the B root partition. So this is the trick we made to obtain the transactional system. You make the change to the second partition, which we call the future partition, and you boot to the present partition. Is complex to explain?
I think I have a basic understanding of it. Yeah, that you're definitely right. That it seems like it's a complex system, but it provides in the end this system immutability that actually. One thing I did want to ask, why is this immutability actually something that mattered in the first place? Why didn't you just make a Ubuntu distribution that has vanilla Gnome on it? Why did you want it to be this immutable system?
The first reason is that I like experimenting, so it is cool, like an immutable Ubuntu.
Yeah.
The second thing is that Linux is probably not ready for the consumer because there are a lot of problems. The fact that you can access your root partition and change everything you want just from your file manager is wrong, simple, and a lot of problems start because people just copy paste things from the internet. So how can I install VS Code? Oh, you can use the Flatpak because no, I wanted to just copy this to my terminal and install everything I want in my Ubuntu. Like, I don't know why that command is asking me to remove the Ubuntu desktop, but yeah, it's fine. So this is why Immutable is probably the best solution.
Okay. So it's solving that issue of users will break things if you give users the chance to break something.
Exactly. Because people love to break things.
Well, you know, there's always going to be issues that arise there, but if you can eliminate the most obvious ways that something can be broken, then it is going to limit the amount of damage that a user that has enough knowledge to do something, but not enough knowledge to do something well, it'll stop some of the most obvious places where that's going to go wrong. If you have enough knowledge to copy and paste a random command you see on the internet into your terminal, but you don't have enough knowledge to know what the command's going to be doing, yeah, it might make sense to have a system where you limit the amount of damage that can really do.
Yes. I think the main problem of people is that they don't think about what they are doing. It just, I copy paste this in my terminal, it works. Probably not. But I copy it, but I don't know.
So I presume the reason that you decided to make VanillaOS based on Ubuntu is because of that support you already saw there with your Optimus setup. Is there any reason why you couldn't have just got that working with Fedora or some other distro, or did you think there was not really any benefit in doing so because you already have this system where you know it works, and there's no point reinventing the wheel where you have a perfectly good system here you can base off of?
I think that there is something magic in Ubuntu which made make everything just works. I don't know why, but I made a lot of benchmark, and I'm not the best person to make benchmarks, so don't take my words as the okay. I made some benchmark to Arch Linux, Fedora, Ubuntu, and another one which Solus. I don't know why with the same exact setup, the same hardware, the same almost the same driver, because Ubuntu used to have old packages. Let's be another. And Ubuntu just works very well. In Fedora, I had a lot of problem with stuttering, less FPS frame rate, and some problem like that. So I was just considering the distribution to use it as a starter for my distribution, and I was thinking Ubuntu just works. Why use Fedora and other? And Fedora is amazing. I mean, it's probably the best distribution. Something like that.
But for what you're doing with your Optimus setup, it just made it just works better. You just know it works, and there's nothing else to worry about there.
Exactly, it just works as expected. Well, there are some problems, like in VanillaOS, like I can't use my webcam right now because I'm missing some drivers probably, which are pre-configured in a stock Ubuntu, so I did something wrong, but it works. Not entirely, but all my hardware almost works.
What webcam is it? A webcam built into the laptop or is it a external webcam?
It's an external USB.
What webcam do you have?
Logitech. No,
is it
Asus?
Oh, okay. I didn't know they made webcams.
I bought that laptop. This laptop is from Asus ROG, and the webcam was external. Also, Asus.
Okay. Right now, the one you're seeing on Discord, if the video's still there, it is still there. That's a Logitech webcam, and this one, it uses the V4L2 drivers, so it just plug and play, and it just works. I'm guessing there's some other software you need for that Asus webcam.
I'll take a look. Just because my webcam works with Ubuntu and Fedora, so I'm probably just missing something.
Hopefully you can work that out, and you actually have a working webcam.
Yeah.
So
there's were this podcast planned, and I.
You're not the first person
I can probably test my webcam before, but okay. Yeah.
You're not the first person I've had that they either didn't have a webcam or their webcam just wasn't working that day. So having the picture there it's not a major problem. And I have, there's a lot of people who listen to this and don't watch the videos. So for them, it doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, if you don't like my picture, just put a window on top of it.
That's certainly an option.
But I look away.
So you did mention being interested in, trying out different tech with making this distro, and one of those things is with the way the package manager works, which I didn't know about this until I was reading more into VanillaOS. But tell people about, is it Apex? APX? How do you say the name?
Apex.
Apex. Okay, that is a really interesting idea, and sort of only can exist because of the work that Luca has also done over on DistroBox. Just give a brief overview of what this package manager is.
Apex is not a conventional package manager because it is not really a package manager. It is a wrapper for DistroBox, and it is started by Luca Di Maio, the developer of DistroBox. It is a manager of containers, so you can use Apex, the command line, to install packages from Fedora, Ubuntu, our repositories, and Alpine. Now we introduced it some time ago. I don't remember. And the thing is that when you install a package, you don't install it in VanillaOS, but you install it in a container which is located in your home directory. So when you install it, it does not change anything in your system. Just place some files in your home directory. And thanks to the big work that Luca Di Maio made with DistroBox, everything just works. Everything is just integrated with the system. So audio, sound, video, everything just works. Like I'm using a Steam to play some games inside an Apex container.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
I didn't try it with anything like that, but that's really cool that works as well.
Yeah, because you can install software from any distribution. You can actually enter that container, make change, blow it up, and just reinitialize the container when you change something which goes wrong.
So for anyone who hasn't heard of DistroBox, basically the idea is it's a wrapper around why am I forgetting the program?
Podman or Docker.
Thank you. Those ones. It's a wrapper around Podman or Docker, which are programs to basically create, I guess you would call it like a mini distribution sort of thing. Basically, it's a way to run an application in this container. It's a containerized distro, and DistroBox takes those things from Docker and Podman and integrates them more tightly into your core system than they would be out of the box. Normally, you'd use them in a server environment where you want to have them separate from the rest of your system. But in this case, they've had them been opened up a bit, so you have more access to your core system resources, and you can sort of, rather than them being really containers, it's more like, I guess, these little frameworks that the application can sit on, and it basically lets you, it lets you install something on Arch Linux, for example, when you're using Ubuntu. So you can have this AUR application installed, and the application thinks it's running on, it knows it was installed on Arch, and has everything there that Arch would have to make it run, but it's getting all of the resources from your core system to make it act like any other sort of application. And that's why something like Steam would just play like it's a regular system application. I think DistroBox is a really cool project, and I like I think it's really cool that showed up on the scene, and Luca's done great work with that.
Luca did a very nice work, a very polished work, because the entire project is written in Bash,
Mhm.
so it's shell scripting. But he made a lot of functions, a lot of things of quality of life improvements
Mhm.
to just made every container just works with your system with no time. You can just drop it, just enter your container, install things, and everything just works perfectly.
Mm.
So thanks, Luca, because it is also involved in the VanillaOS project. So amazing. You should probably make a podcast with him.
I will get something planned at some. the The problem is when we started talking, it was December, and December is it's a messy time to get anything like this planned. But
The worst month of the year.
absolutely, but something will happen, assuming that schedules line up, and we'll make something happen soon, hopefully. But I was mentioning earlier that now that Flatpaks are becoming a more popular way to distribute applications, immutable distros are becoming more popular, but something like Apex completely eliminates that need for relying just on Flatpaks. And obviously you can use DistroBox by itself on something like Silverblue, but I think it would be really cool if, like, the problem with DistroBox is DistroBox exposes a lot of things to the user which aren't really that important if all you're trying to do is get something running. I think something like Apex would be it would be really cool if other immutable distros started doing something similar and using DistroBox in this package manager fashion that people are familiar with the way they would use a package manager on other distributions.
Mhm. We made Apex distro agnostic as a purpose, because it can work with any problem on any distribution.
Mm-hmm.
Like some day ago, probably yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
one guy published it on the AUR
Oh,
repository.
I didn't know
So
that.
it is available, yes. We don't provide support for that package because it is not in the VanillaOS.
That makes sense, but it is really cool. Oh, it also mentions um the fix for X11 applications where in many environments GUI apps won't run because you need to share your X server with the local user. Thank you that someone left that comment. That's really cool that exists on other places, and it's really cool that you made that as a distro agnostic thing, because it would, it could just be this thing that only exists on VanillaOS, but having it be this distro agnostic thing, as I said, I do hope that other immutable distros start to use this, or maybe fork the project, or use something like this, because it does eliminate that major issue that immutable distros had, which is, how do we install software?
Mhm. Actually, also the AB root software, which is the one we use to make the immutability in
Mm-hmm.
VanillaOS, is also distro agnostic.
Mm-hmm.
So you can also use it. I tried to make elementary Fedora, and I'm trying to do the same with Arch.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to make those distributions immutable using Abiroot with completely zero effort because it
Wow.
just works everywhere.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah. Let's make an Arch Linux immutable, which is probably the worst idea.
Valve already did it. They made SteamOS.
Yeah, yeah. Which is something different. You don't use SteamOS to install everything. No, you yeah. Okay. You use it to install everything because it's just Arch, so you do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really cool. Like this focus around. So one of the things that I find boring about the distro landscape is a lot of distros are basically the same thing. This is Ubuntu with Gnome. I guess that's Ubuntu. This is Ubuntu with KDE. This is Ubuntu with XFCE. But VanillaOS is, sure, it's based on Ubuntu, but it's very clearly doing its own thing and trying to experiment with these different technologies. And I think that's really cool. And I think that's part of the reason why it is getting so much attention. It's not just another Ubuntu distribution. It is VanillaOS. It's based on Ubuntu, but it's very clearly its own thing.
Mm-hmm. Because I like to do what I want as a Qt developer. We tried to fix some problems that are common in a lot of distribution, like an update. I hate updates in the Windows I want to start my PC. Oh, there is an update. Oh, okay. In VanillaOS, updates are in the background, completely automated, so you don't have to worry about anything. You just there is a function that is the smart update, which is not something very complex, just a bunch of condition. Like if there is internet, we can proceed. If the CPU does not exceed the 50%, we can proceed. So there are some checks to allow an update only if all the conditions are respected. So if you're playing a game, if you're watching a video, playing some music and something like that, just there will be no updates.
Okay.
And this should fix some problems with user which does not want to update, just like Arch users, which probably sometimes does not upgrade their system for months, and everything just blows up because packages, things like that.
The most common problem you'll see on Arch is your PGP signatures, your PGP keys being out of date, and everything just dying. But yeah, you can definitely, especially when a lot of dependency names change and other little things that might happen over a period of time. Yeah, you're always worried that something is going to go wrong when you're using Arch. But look, if you've used Arch for long enough, you basically learn to expect something is gonna go wrong every so often. But if your goal is using your PC as a tool, not use your PC as part of your hobby, something where it's done seamlessly and always works, assuming there's no bugs, seems like the better choice.
Honestly, I don't know.
If you can be sure your updates are going to like the update you get is it's only going to go through if it's going to function. That seems like it's going to be better for the user trying to get a good experience. That makes sense.
Um, I don't know how to answer this.
Maybe I wasn't phrasing it in the best way. We'll move on from that. So now that VanillaOS is out to the public and anybody can go and use it, what is the plan going forward? Is there anything that you want to do in the next month, next couple of months? What's the roadmap looking like for VanillaOS going forward?
We are trying to fix all the reported bugs because there are obviously bugs.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very young distribution, so we expected it.
Mm-hmm.
We will focus on Lunar, so the next Ubuntu release, which is
Yes.
23.04.
Yes.
Yeah. Not this month, probably not February. So there will be some delay because we need to fix some things, made some decisions. But our focus right now is to make everything works the best to consolidate the distribution.
Mm-hmm.
So users should not expect that we will follow the Ubuntu release cycle very strictly.
Okay.
Our next move is to make a core version, minimal version of VanillaOS, so everything can have the same without Gnome, just installing KDE, XFCE, everything they want.
Okay. Okay.
So this is the main focus right now.
So if someone wants to get involved and help out with the project, what's the best way they can go and do so?
We made a page in our website, which is actually get involved in the top right, and there you can start translating, developing, designing, writing documentation. We also have an handbook, which is handbook.vanillaos.org. And we are looking for people who start making documentation in there.
Have you had much support for the things outside of the development so far, like with those translations and with the documentation, or what does that outside help really look like so far?
A lot of people joined the developers team. Someone started working to core applications of VanillaOS. Others started typing, writing documentation. Others translating Weblate given to us the open source license for the project, so we can manage the translation in their platform. We have a lot of people started working with us to make everything just works better. So it's a way. So
the project's only a few months old, so I can expect that a lot of stuff still needs a lot of work.
There is still a lot of work to do. because we started distributing the release candidate of the project, but there was a lot of change on Go. Like we changed completely the kind of immutability of the system, because we wrote an utility which is called almost, which provide an immutability using the immutability flags of file, like a capture, something like that. And that was the first release candidate, but we had a lot of problems with that kind, because there are no atomic transactions. Everything was just too much complex to manage. And so we started making a root, and that takes 1 month, probably. So when we ended the development of root, some users or tester, which was 3,000 on Discord, a lot of tester, reported some bugs, but not critical ones. So we chose to just distribute the stable because everything was working. When not everything was working, there was some problems, but we expected it. And we fixed almost everything with the third revision of the distro.
So, besides wanting to try out this new way of doing immutability, why wouldn't you have just used something like OS Tree, which Silverblue uses, and I believe SteamOS uses as well?
I had some experience with libOS 3 because of bottles. We made some experiments, something. It's just too complex to integrate, to manage, to maintain. Very complex. Is an always-on technology, or truly always-on technology, but too complex to integrate. We wanted something that was that is more simple to use, completely distro agnostic, and root was the best choice.
Well, it seems like so far it's going well. It seems like so far you've got this thing that works, and it needs polishing still, but there is this idea that a lot of people are interested in working with, a lot of people are interested in discussing, talking about how it's the future of the Linux distro, and I think that's really cool. I think that's just really cool where it seems like this is going.
It's going.
So, actually, do I have anything else on this list I wanted to ask you? That is... I don't think I do, actually. With those translations you mentioned before, what currently is... What sort of translations are currently available? Is there anything that's in a sort of remotely usable state? What languages have you seen people offer translations for? How's that going?
The system is completely translated in probably any language, because we use the same translation of Ubuntu.
Okay, right, that makes sense.
Or core applications, I have no idea. Just let me check. We have a lot of translators, so I think we have a lot of. Yeah, probably. Okay, probably everything is already covered. there are some translations which are not even started, but almost everything is just covered.
Mhm.
I'm looking at the table. Yeah,
Wow. I guess that's one of the
amazing.
benefits of the project getting a lot of attention. Things like translations can get a lot of work very quickly.
Yeah, I had no idea, honestly. It's amazing.
The project is
Okay,
it's only
48 languages.
wow.
Wow.
The project is 3 months old and it's grown so quickly that you have no idea what's even happening anymore.
It's amazing.
It is really crazy.
How is this possible? I had no idea, really.
Well, like you should like. What was I trying? How would I phrase it? Like I think you deserve it. Like you've been doing stuff like bottles, and you've clearly been working very hard in this space for a long time. So getting attention for the work you're doing, honestly, you deserve it. And it's clear that you're trying to make something that is fixing an issue that obviously you had, but it's an issue that clearly many other people are having as well, and the way you're trying to go about it is it's aligning with what other people want to be using as well, and yeah, that's really cool.
It's really cool. I'm still digesting the popularity of bottles. So I'm confused about VanillaOS because I don't know. Wow.
There's so many distros out there that it seems weird that this one that you made is the one that everyone is now talking about.
Yeah, there are a lot of distributions. So why use Vanilla? Just use Manjaro. Go. Don't use Vanilla.
Don't
Give
use
it
Arch
up.
Linux.
Give me alone with my distribution.
Well, I think I've covered everything that I want to talk about. If there's anything that you specifically wanted to get into that we hadn't discussed so far, we can talk about that. Otherwise, we can start to wrap up the episode.
I think we are okay. I just want to say, by the way, I use VanillaOS to make some terrorism to the Arch Linux users.
You really
Let's
have
use
a
VanillaOS.
you have a vendetta against Arch Linux, don't you?
Yeah, because I know that Arch Linux users are trying to use VanillaOS, but they don't want to say anything. They are hiding with their laptop with VanillaOS, and they are crying because VanillaOS is magic. I'm just don't take my words. I'm just joking.
I'm very
just
aware you're
joking.
just joking here.
Don't cut my.
Look, as I said, I've been using Arch Linux for a very long time. I think there are definitely some people in the Linux space who take themselves a bit too seriously, but everyone else, I think, is well aware that this is just a joke.
Yeah, I have a plan to make some documentation to use Abiroot and Apex in any other distribution, and I will probably start with Elementary and Arch, which I already tested. I'm actually testing Arch Linux now, so there will be some documentation in the VanillaOS documentation to port Abiroot and other VanillaOS technologies to other distribution. I think some user will find it useful.
Were there any other VanillaOS technologies we didn't talk about? We talked about Apex, we talked about Abiroot. Was there anything else, at least right now, that is worth mentioning?
There is a Vanilla System Operator, which is the one who take the task to upgrade the system in the background.
Oh, okay.
There are some big works going on in that project because we are making a task system.
Hmm.
Like you can make task which run on a specific condition, like when your battery reach like 30%,
Okay.
or when when you're disconnected, connected, log in, log out, etc.
Hmm.
Something like System D, but at completely at home side, in user side. We are also working to an interface to make this more simple to use, like the automator in the macOS system.
Hmm. That actually does sound really cool because I know there's a lot of stuff that you can, if you know which system tools you're looking for, can be automated fairly, like, in a fairly straightforward way. The issue is working out which tools do what things and how you're supposed to go about using them. So bringing all of that together in a simpler way, once again thinking about the user, there's definitely some value there as well.
Yes, we are trying to simplify a lot of things. I'm trying to, I don't know where I put my screenshot of the automator.
Oof, you
I
have a
want to share with
screenshot.
you.
Have a look at it.
Take this.
Okay.
This is not even public, but you can do whatever you want with this.
This is going to be a
Let's make some spoiler.
podcast first. Okay. So automated tasks, send SMS on low battery. So name, description, okay, that's whatever, normal stuff. Event on lower battery. Okay.
The project, the idea is that you can make your own event. So, like when you start your computer at a specific condition, the VSO, the automator, can prompt to you to start your routine. So, like you started your computer at the morning, at the automator prompt to you to start your routine. So, opening all your common applications like VS Code, Chromium, Telegram, etc. So you like the Apple Automator, which you have in iOS devices, macOS devices. You can automate every single task in your PC. Like when you receive a notification, you can streamline it to your smartphone using a dedicated application. You can do
I
a lot
used
of things.
macOS for 5 years. I actually didn't know Automator ever existed. I can see how it's definitely inspired by it though. That I think is really cool.
You can go into the toilet and keep your monitor to your smartphone. Watch your monitor to your smartphone using this application. Because I know when you are going to the toilet, you are taking your time, and your time is precious.
This
VanillaOS is made for toilet.
I think this is definitely something that people outside of VanillaOS, just on any sort of distro, would be interested in seeing. Obviously, AB root is a very specific kind of application. If you have no interest in an immutable system, AB root isn't going to matter. But this is something that I'm sure a lot of people would be. They may not think they want something like this without it being presented to them, but once they see it, this is going to make a lot of things you're trying to do just easier to work with. As I said, you can do all of this stuff just working with systemd and various other utilities directly, but giving a simple interface where even someone who has a basic understanding of how Linux works can go and set this stuff up. I think that's cool. And when this is a thing that is just, you know, out there and easily available, it's something I'm definitely going to have a look at for my own system.
Yeah, the idea is that you can get rid of your terminal soon, but not immediately, because Linux is just not ready for this, but we are working on this.
Right, no, that makes sense. So, yeah, Linux is still... I see that definitely is the direction that distros are, or that desktop environments are going, trying to, especially Gnome for that. Gnome is trying to do as much as it can in the in the GUI. Obviously, there are still those cases where, and I think this will always be the case, it's even the case on Windows, where there are some things that can only be done from the terminal, but as a regular user, everything you should want to do on your day-to-day use of your system should be done in a GUI. A GUI is just it's an easier system to understand.
Exactly. I agree. But I want to copy paste my script. No, you don't.
Obviously, we never want to get rid of having the terminal there for those more advanced users who want to go and do so, but it shouldn't be something that you need to do just to get basic things done. Or maybe you don't like the terminal, you do want to get rid of it, I don't know.
I love the terminal. I use it to build VanillaOS, so it is important to have a terminal in a console, in a distribution, because console is better. But we need a console, a terminal, whatever you want. But I think that customers, the final users, should not ever want a terminal, because why? What do you want to do with a terminal? Your PCs should just work as expected. Don't. But this kernel, they say this is a waste of okay. Can install it. I have a better gaming experience. Just play your game and don't let me. But here I can copy paste this. No, you don't. You don't. Trust me. There are many people that start reporting, I can't use an apt, this distribution is broken, this is incredible, I can't use dpkg, because they are not even present in VanillaOS, so you can use them only during a transaction. Yeah, but I want to install this package. Just read the documentation, install during a transaction. I made this, but the transaction goes wrong and I don't have my changes uploaded on Nextboot, because the transaction was wrong. So your PC is safe. Trust me.
Assuming there's no bugs.
Exactly.
Which is always the worry. There's always going to be something that could possibly go wrong.
Exactly. There was a funny moment with a user. They started, they asked to me how to install a package in VanillaOS in the root system. I said I linked to the documentation. So they tried to install to make some changes, and when they exit from the transactional shell, everything goes wrong. So nothing was uploaded, nothing was changed, and they was starting blaming me because where are my changes? The system literally showed you that everything goes wrong. So why do you want to still apply? I need to still apply. Okay, just exit 0 in your console. But everything now does not work. Hey, you are a monkey, my friend. I can't even boot right now. Just switch the partition, but I blow it up again. You are you're a fucking monkey.
Yo. It sounds like you've had some interesting interactions with people not understanding what VanillaOS is.
It's the funny part of the project.
Well, at least you're having fun with it and you're not taking every issue you see made really seriously and letting it
Oh, of course.
seem like a personal attack.
No. There was some personal attack, like in the Omg Linux review.
Mm-hmm.
One user commented like, this project is a shit. I hope the developer stop wasting his time to develop it. And I was like, okay. Okay. I love you.
I think that's the best approach. You can't let... There's always going to be people that as soon as something becomes popular, they're going to start to hate it for no reason. And you cannot reason someone out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into. They just don't like the idea of Gnome or an immutable distro or you or anything else. They just want to find something to be angry about, and they're going to be angry about it.
I take it easy. It's just funny. I mean, I love my projects.
Mm.
There are a lot of people that is reaching me almost every day to say me that they love my project. They are giving me a lot of ideas. There are also a lot of people that are reaching me on Discord like, I don't want to say a lie, but like 1,000 of people started asking me, how can I make my own distribution?
Okay. I'm not surprised that you got a lot of those messages.
Yeah. I had your friendship request on Discord, and it was completely hidden by the other requests of people asking me, why can I make this distribution? I want to make the best one in the world. Okay. And I was just ignoring your request, but Dennis Calico contacted me to say, oh, there is this guy which was, you should, okay, thanks. I was literally ignoring your request because please don't ask me how to make a distribution again.
That's totally fair. That's why I asked for the skeleton to send a message over just to make sure you saw it.
I love people. I love the people.
Well,
yes.
At least those people are they're not going to the right person to ask, but at least they respect the work you're doing and see that you made a good distro, and want to know how they can do so themselves. Maybe they should ask someone else, but at least they're not being mean about it. Maybe unless you tell them you're not going to help them, then they might be mean, but up until that point, maybe they're nice.
Yeah, I think the the real problem is that there are no easy documentation to make a distribution because there is no one way, one method to make a distribution.
Yeah.
Distribution is just one term. It's just a word. You can make it from scratch using Linux from scratch, using Gen2 as a base, Arch Linux, Squash FS file system. There are a lot of variables to consider. And some people, and I did the same error at the time. I wanted to start I want to start making a distribution a lot of time ago. And I was typing on internet how to make a Linux distribution because I am better than everything. There are no solution because, as I said, there is no one way, one method to make a distribution. You just have to learn about what is a Linux distribution, what is Ubuntu, what is Arch Linux, and make your own.
Yeah, that part's the important part. If you don't want to put in that effort to research the tooling you need to know, no matter what you were planning to do with that distro anyway, it wasn't going to be worth your time. Go and learn the tooling you need to know, and then we can think about what you're going to be doing with that distro. Whether you're going to be building it on OS tree or changing up the way the Ubuntu build will work or anything else like that, expand the knowledge you have, and then you can work out what you want to be doing. I think the only issue there is there's not really a lot of those resources aren't exactly clear where to get started. That I can understand.
I agree. I think if you have a clear idea of what you want to do, what to make, if you reach me with an idea, with something you started making up, probably also if it is wrong, you started making something, but it is probably wrong. If you come to me with this information, I can help you. I mean, I cannot help don't start right asking me help, please, no. But if you come to me with something clear, I can give you some answer, something. I'm not the best, I'm probably the worst in the world, but you mean I can help you in some way. But if you come to me with, I want to make this, I fork your project and I wanted to change this thing. If you forked my project, you should also know how to make change to it. Don't just, I want to make it, I don't know, flash my screen. I don't know. You fork it, you should just know whatever you want to do.
Well, on that note, I think we should end off the show. Let people know where they can find you, where they can find the work that you do. Where can they go?
You can't.
Okay.
You can find me on VanillaOS Discord, obviously VanillaOS. I blocked my. I am on Mastodon. I left Twitter 1 month ago because, Elon Musk, that big boy, when Twitter was on fire.
When?
I want to
still
kill
is.
Mastodon. I wanted to say this thing. You can't because you are my competitor. You are kicked from my service. You stupid. So I left Twitter. I'm on Mastodon. You can reach me on there. You can reach me on Discord. Just don't message me, don't ping me every time, because in VanillaOS server there are a lot of mentions, because I love this distro, ping me. I love you too, but please don't, because I'm also when I'm working, I have a job, obviously.
Yep.
And I receive a lot of notifications, and this my company has a lot of products online. I'm always scared, because I receive a lot of notification at the same time, a lot of ping from Discord, and on iOS, I'm using iOS. The notification sound is almost the same for every application. So I am a bit scared, because, oh no, what's happening? And no, it's just a ping because you want to make your fucking distribution.
I've noticed that you do use Do Not Disturb very often.
Yeah.
Seems like a good idea.
Yes.
Is there anything else any other things you wanted to mention, or is that all of the places where people can find what you're doing and find you?
I think it's all.
Okay.
Peace and love.
I will leave the links to all of that stuff in the description down below. If there's anything that you forgot to mention, just send me a message and I'll make sure to include it. Yeah. As for me, if you're listening to the audio version of this, the video version is available on YouTube. If you're watching the video version, the audio version you can find on any podcast platform. There is an RSS feed, all that fun stuff. Search Tech of a T and you'll probably find it. I've got a gaming channel that is Brody on Games. Right now I'm playing through Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days, and also doing a Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire randomize Nuzlocke Soul Link with Rogue Ren. We are at the sixth. We finished the 6th gym. We're going to the 7th gym. And if you want to see my main channel where I do Linux videos 6 days a week, that is Rudy Robertson. But you're probably from that channel anyway, so I don't know why I mention it. I'll give you the last word. What do you want to say to close out the show?
Peace and love. Don't use Arch.
Don't use
Use
Arch.
VanillaOS.
True. Okay. Use VanillaOS.
By the way, I use VanillaOS.
Thank you guys for watching. I'm
Bye.
out.